Each of my grandparents had a strikingly different story. So my last name is Hall. The Hall family seems to have emigrated from England to the New World, as it was, the colonies, in the 1600s. So a Richard Hall, which coincidentally is the name of one of my uncles, not that we knew it was a historic family name, apparently came here in the 1650s. And my grandfather's family lived in the New England area, and they just settled down and they stayed there for generation upon generation. Now, he married a woman named Rosalie Hayhurst, whose background couldn't have really been more different because she was Boston Irish. And her family had the classic late 19th century, a little bit after the potato famine, but not long after the potato famine. It was a bit more the 1860s than the 1840s. But fleeing Ireland and coming and settling into the Boston Irish ethnic enclave. So my grandmother's childhood in Boston was actually a very colorful time there. It was when John F. Kennedy's grandfather, Honey Fitz they called him, was the mayor, and another big Boston Irish figure, James Curley. Kind of sketchy, but very popular among his people, and so she was living in that, Boston ruled by this flamboyant political scene, and really interesting. Whenever she would tell me about it, I was like, wow, that was real, that happened. And the way that they got together was he was in the military. And so they married and ended up working their way military base by base from Connecticut to South Carolina to ultimately in Tennessee, which is where my dad was living when he met my mom. They also met through the Army. And my mother, on her father's side of the family, she's Italian, pure Italian, from the region of Abruzzi, which isn't particularly well known. It's in central Italy and not a big tourist area, not particularly well known for, architecture or anything like that. And so it was a little town called Palmoli, and my great-grandfather came over on a ship in 1908 by himself, leaving his wife and child behind. And after 3 years, he sent for them. And they came over in 1911 through Ellis Island, which is where I was able to find pictures of the ships in question. I found their names in the register. And then they settled down in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania, had a very large family, including my grandfather, who was a twin. And when they were born, the family wanted to name the children Dominic and Nicholas. And their priest told them, you can't name them that. You call them Henry and Harry. Those are good American names. Which always struck me as weird because Harry is a nickname for Henry, so that just seemed very silly to me. But they were baptized Dominic and Nicholas. And so my grandfather, he didn't speak English until he went to kindergarten. But he was called Harry by his family. And it was only after World War II when he decided, for reasons that were never fully explained, that he just was abandoning Pennsylvania, leaving his whole family behind and relocating to San Jose, California. He started going by Dominic and was called Dominic until the day he died, named his son Dominic. And so I always appreciated that Grandpa looked at this, treatment that he got and said, no, I'm not doing that, and my kids aren't doing that. And so the woman he married was actually from an old California family. My grandmother's maiden name was Shirley Martinez, and her father's side of the family seems to have got roots back to Chile in the 1880s. She was a fourth-generation Californian on her mother's side of the family, who were pioneers who got mixed up with the early Mormon church. And so we have extensive genealogy records. So for me to exist, it's this whole improbable chain of Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants, colonial New Englanders, colonial Spanish, a family who somehow got, through the whole course of U.S. all the way to California in the 1900s. So I feel lucky to exist.